Sometimes your body knows the truth before your mind accepts it. They say the truth will set you free, but sometimes it nearly kills you first. I'm talking about the day I almost died proving my innocence in a courtroom full of people who thought I was a monster. My name is Thomas, and this is the story of how a heart attack saved my life. It started 3 years ago when I married Hannah. She was everything I thought I wanted: beautiful, charming, successful. She worked as a marketing director, made good money, and seemed to have her life together. I was a construction foreman, worked with my hands, built things that lasted. We seemed like a good match. The problems began about 6 months into our marriage. Hannah would get angry over small things: if I left dishes in the sink, if I came home late from a job site, if I forgot to text her back immediately. At first I thought it was just adjustment stress. New marriages are tough, right? But the anger escalated. She started throwing things during arguments: plates, books, whatever was within reach. Once she hurled a ceramic mug that shattered against the wall inches from my head. When I tried to calm her down, she'd scream that I was intimidating her, that I was using my size against her. I'm 6'2" and work construction, so yeah, I'm a big guy. But I've never raised a hand to anyone, especially not someone I loved. My father taught me that a real man protects people, he doesn't hurt them. So when Hannah would rage and throw things, I'd leave. I'd go for drives or sleep in my truck until she cooled down. That became my mistake. Leaving made me look guilty. Hannah started documenting everything. She'd take photos of the broken dishes, the holes in the wall from thrown objects, but in her photos it looked like I had caused the damage. She'd text herself from my phone when I wasn't looking, creating fake threatening messages. She even started showing up to work with scratches on her arms, telling her colleagues I had grabbed her. I had no idea she was building a case against me until the day she filed for divorce and a restraining order simultaneously. I came home from work to find the locks changed and a sheriff's deputy waiting with papers. Hannah stood in the doorway with tears in her eyes, telling the officer she was afraid for her life. My whole world collapsed. My friends, my family, even my own brother started looking at me differently. Hannah was so convincing, so detailed in her accusations. She had evidence: the photos, the text messages, witness statements from her coworkers who'd seen her injuries. My lawyer, Patricia Williams, was the only person who seemed to believe me. She listened to my side and started asking the right questions. Why were all the photos taken from certain angles? Why did the text messages only go one way? Why couldn't anyone verify they'd actually seen me hurt Hannah? But belief wasn't enough. We needed proof, and Hannah had destroyed or hidden anything that might contradict her story. She'd gotten rid of our security cameras, claiming they made her feel surveilled. She'd thrown away my damaged clothes from the nights she'd attacked me. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Hannah's lawyer painted me as a classic abuser, a big, controlling man who used his physical presence to terrorize his smaller wife. They brought in expert witnesses talking about domestic violence patterns, trauma responses, the difficulty victims face in leaving their abusers. Meanwhile, I sat there watching my character get assassinated. My construction company started losing contracts. Word spread in our small town. Parents wouldn't let their kids around me anymore. I became a pariah. The lowest point came when my nephew Brandon, who I'd helped raise after my sister died, crossed the street to avoid walking past me. This kid who used to call me his hero now looked at me with fear and disgust. That night I seriously considered just disappearing, starting over somewhere nobody knew my name, but Patricia kept pushing. She hired a private investigator who started digging into Hannah's past. Turns out my wife had a history. Her previous boyfriend, Michael Chen, had filed similar reports against her before mysteriously dropping them. Another ex, Trevor Moore, had moved across the country after their breakup, citing safety concerns. We tracked down Michael. He was terrified to talk at first, but eventually told us his story. Hannah had used the same playbook: the rage episodes, the thrown objects, the fake evidence, the false accusations. He'd only escaped by agreeing to pay her $20,000 to go away quietly. This gave us a pattern, but would it be enough? Hannah's legal team was skilled, and they painted Michael as a bitter ex trying to help another abuser. They had photos, they had witness testimony, they had hospital records from the times Hannah claimed I'd hurt her. The trial began on a Tuesday in October. Hannah took the stand first, and she was devastating. She described in detail how I'd supposedly grabbed her, pushed her, threatened her. She cried at all the right moments, her voice breaking when she talked about living in fear. I watched the jury's faces. They believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was a petite, well-spoken woman with evidence, and I was the big construction worker with calloused hands and intimidating presence. When my turn came to testify, I knew this was my only shot. Patricia had prepared me, but standing there in front of all those skeptical faces, I felt the weight of everything I'd lost. My reputation, my relationships, my sense of self. I started by telling them about the real Hannah, the woman who would fly into rages over nothing, who threw dishes and books and anything she could grab, who would scratch her own arms and blame me for the marks. My voice was steady at first, clinical almost, just reciting facts, but then I started talking about the emotional damage, how she'd isolated me from my friends and family before turning them against me, how she destroyed my relationship with my nephew, how she'd made me question my own sanity, wondering if maybe I was the monster everyone thought I was. The stress was overwhelming. I could feel my chest getting tight, my breathing becoming shallow. I'd been having chest pains for weeks, but I'd ignored them. Stress, my doctor had said, anxiety from the trial. As I described the night Hannah threw a kitchen knife that stuck in the wall behind me, an incident she claimed was me threatening her with the blade, the pain in my chest intensified. Sweat beaded on my forehead. I pushed through, determined to tell my story. I talked about finding the fake text messages on my phone, about discovering she'd been coaching her coworkers on what to say about my supposed abuse. The pain was getting worse, radiating down my left arm. Then I mentioned something Patricia had discovered just days before trial. Hannah had been recording our conversations for months, but she'd only submitted edited portions to the court. The full recordings, which we'd subpoenaed from her phone company, told a very different story. That's when my heart gave out. The last thing I remember clearly was trying to explain how Hannah had cut her own audio to make my defensive responses sound like threats. The chest pain became crushing, overwhelming. The courtroom started spinning. I collapsed right there on the witness stand. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. Patricia was sitting beside my bed with news that changed everything. My heart attack had done something unexpected. It had saved my case. When I collapsed, Hannah's reaction had been captured by the court cameras. Instead of showing concern or rushing to help, she'd smiled. Actually smiled. Then she'd leaned over to her lawyer and whispered something that the court reporter had heard clearly. Is this enough to delay the trial? But more importantly, my medical emergency had prompted the judge to recess and thoroughly review all evidence before continuing. During that review, court officials discovered the discrepancies in Hannah's audio recordings. When played in full, they revealed a pattern of her instigating violence and me trying to de-escalate or leave. The investigation expanded. Police re-examined the physical evidence with fresh eyes. They found Hannah's fingerprints on the knife she claimed I'd threatened her with. Security footage from her workplace showed her deliberately scratching her own arms in the parking lot before showing her colleagues the abuse marks. Michael Chen's testimony suddenly carried more weight when corroborated by the evidence of Hannah's deception. Trevor Moore agreed to testify remotely, sharing remarkably similar experiences. When the trial resumed a week later, I was still weak but determined to see it through. Hannah's lawyer tried to claim my heart attack was a manipulation tactic, but the medical records showed I'd been having symptoms for weeks, symptoms consistent with the chronic stress of being falsely accused. The turning point came when Patricia played the full audio recordings. The courtroom heard Hannah screaming at me, throwing objects, threatening to destroy my life if I ever tried to leave her. They heard her practicing her victim testimony, coaching herself on how to cry convincingly. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. They found in my favor on all counts: no spousal support, no division of assets I'd brought into the marriage, and a judgment against Hannah for fraud and defamation. But the legal victory was just the beginning of rebuilding my life. The heart attack had been a wake-up call about more than just Hannah's abuse. I'd been so focused on defending myself that I'd ignored my own health, my own needs. Recovery meant more than just healing from the heart attack. I had to rebuild relationships with friends and family who doubted me. My brother apologized, but it took months before things felt normal between us. Some friendships never recovered. The hardest conversation was with my nephew Brandon. I sat him down and explained what had really happened, showed him some of the evidence that had come out in trial. He cried and apologized, but I told him he had nothing to be sorry for. He'd been protecting himself the only way he knew how. Hannah faced charges for perjury and filing false police reports. She pleaded guilty and received 2 years probation and community service. The judge also ordered her to pay my legal fees and medical expenses from the heart attack. I learned later that she'd moved to another state and was already in a new relationship. Part of me worried for that guy, wondered if I should warn him. But Patricia advised me to focus on my own healing rather than trying to save someone who might not want to be saved. The physical recovery from the heart attack took months. I had to modify my diet, start exercising regularly, manage stress better. But the emotional recovery took longer. Being falsely accused of something so serious changes you. It makes you question everything: your judgment, your ability to read people, your faith in justice. I started seeing a therapist, something I never thought I'd need. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that what Hannah had done was a form of psychological warfare. She'd systematically destroyed my support system, isolated me, then used that isolation as evidence of my guilt. The construction company welcomed me back, but some clients remained skeptical. I had to work twice as hard to rebuild professional relationships. Every new project felt like another chance to prove I wasn't the man Hannah had painted me as. The strangest part was how the heart attack became a blessing in disguise. Not just because it exposed Hannah's true nature, but because it forced me to confront how much damage her abuse had done to my physical and mental health. I'd been so focused on being strong, on enduring her attacks, that I'd ignored what they were doing to my body. Now, 2 years later, I'm healthier than I've been in years. I've got my relationships back, my reputation restored, my life rebuilt. I'm even dating again, carefully, slowly, but with hope. The woman I'm seeing now, Lisa, knows my whole story. She was actually in the courtroom that day, working as a court reporter on a different case. She saw everything happen, including Hannah's reaction to my collapse. Lisa reached out months later after the trial ended just to check on me. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if my heart hadn't given out that day. Would the jury have believed Hannah's lies? Would I have lost everything and spent years fighting to clear my name? Would I have ever discovered the truth about her pattern of abuse? The heart attack was terrifying and recovery was hard, but it saved me from something worse, a life destroyed by lies. It forced the truth into the light when nothing else could. I still have bad days, moments when I doubt myself or feel angry about the time I lost, the relationships that were damaged. But mostly I feel grateful. Grateful that my body forced the truth out when my words couldn't. Grateful that justice prevailed, even if it came at such a cost. Hannah taught me that some people are expert manipulators, skilled at creating false narratives and destroying lives. But she also taught me that I'm stronger than I knew, that I can survive almost anything, and that sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest dawn. The truth didn't just set me free, it nearly killed me first. But I'm still here, still standing, and that has to count for something.